So in this video, we're going to work with some small scale examples to kind of learn and get comfortable with joins in SQL and what they're ultimately doing behind the scenes. I'll say that working with joins is conceptually, I don't think it's very difficult necessarily. We know that we're matching data across one or across two or more tables, and we're ultimately condensing that into a single table. I think where it gets tricky is that we don't actually see that those steps being performed, and so the output we might be thinking is one thing, but we're actually getting something different. And what I'm really talking about is duplication, record duplication, etc. So you need to understand how the join is actually being performed in order to understand why your results might not be necessarily what is expected. So in this lecture, there are three examples: the inner join, the full join, and then also I'll demonstrate the left join, but we can talk about the right join quickly. These we're working with three examples. They're created from fictitious data, and they're very small scale, right? We see that we're selecting all fields, all records from this local temporary table loan underscore info. And we see that there are four records. There are also four records in this table, vehicle underscore make or vehicle make. Notice that we're using an account number field, right, with very small numbers. Usually account numbers are 9, 10 plus digits, but we have 1, 2, 3, and 5 as account numbers in this table, or what will be our left table throughout these examples. And then in our right table, or the vehicle make table, we have values of 1, 3, 4, and 5. So if we're just to look across these tables, we can already see that there's a match for account number 1. There is a match for account number 3. There is not a match for account number 2. There is not a match for account number 4. So the account number 2 appears in our left table, but not in our right. Account number 4 appears in our right table, but not in our left. And then ultimately, the account number 5 is found in both tables. To take a step back for a second, this lecture, we're just going to go through the examples. There is a SQL script that I will record a separate video for that ultimately shows creating this data and then executing these queries to prove out that this is ultimately what is returned. There will be in that video, there will be a few other minor points. For example, when I'm asking this question about table aliases and why it's required in a certain clause, we can actually see that example or that reason play out while executing SQL code. Going back to this example specifically, so I was talking about account numbers and which ones are matched and not matched in the left and right table. We're looking at an inner join for this example. So if we go to the query, right, this will be the first query that I've introduced, at least in the lecture, that uses a join. We'll see that the join type appears in the from clause. There is an on a keyword, which basically tells you which fields to use as matching criteria. There is also a table alias, right? So we have a table alias of A, and this table alias can be anything. It doesn't have to be letters, although it usually is in practice, just for simplicity's sake. And then we'll see our right table vehicle make has a column alias of B. It won't really play out in this example very much, those table aliases and the distinction there. I have a subsequent example where we'll actually work through an example in AdventureWorks database that is far more detailed in terms of executing joins, what happens with different table aliases, and how that appears when a record is matched, unmatched, etc. For this example, we're just interested in what do we do, what's going to be returned when we execute a join. And so going back to the on, right, the join criteria, we're essentially joining account number in table A, which is our loan info. So we're joining account number here on account number in our B table, or our vehicle make table, or right table over here. And so that's really the field that we're matching on. And the query is saying, give me all fields which end up being from both tables because we're executing a join. So we'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields returned in the output. And then we're also ordering by the account number field from table A specifically. It doesn't really matter if you were to do table B. In this particular example, the output wouldn't change. But let's look at what is actually returned. Recall that 1 is found, account number 1, account number 3, and account number 5 are found in both tables. So for the inner join, right, we need to find matches in both tables for the record to be returned, and that's why there are only 3 records here returned, the ones for account numbers that have matches across the 2 tables. Recall that account number 2 appears in the left table, not in the right, and then account number 4 appears in the right table, not the left. Which means that, and this is why, those records do not appear with an inner join. And ultimately, the information that is returned for each one of those account numbers is the information associated with the record in the original table. So if we're looking at loan amount and loan term in the original table, we'll see that for record 1, we've basically taken these first 3 cells and put them down in the output. Same with the bottom 2 cells, which are your account number 3 and 5. And then if we go over to our vehicle make, our right table, we see that the same thing occurred. Note that when you select all fields, right, you're going to have duplication of the column names. And that's why in our order by, we need to be explicit about which table we're actually using to sort the output. If we did not have a table alias, which is not required when there is only one field or output column, or sorry, one field that has that field name when it's unique, not shared across the tables. Account number is, and we're requesting it in the select list, both of them, because we're selecting all fields. And so we need to be explicit and provide a table alias. If we didn't, SQL wouldn't know, well, do I use this table to sort the output, or do I use this, this column to sort the output, or do I use this column? And this is what's referred to an ambiguous column name. That's the error that SQL will return. And so that's why it's ultimately required. And I do note that while it's best practice, a table alias is not required if the field name does not appear in any other table. So if it's unique to a single table or unique to the select list. Again, it is best practice to always use your table aliases when referring to field names in a join query. So that is the inner join. Recall that the point here is that only records with matches across the 2 tables are returned. So going into the full join, which is the counterpart or the corollary to the inner join, all records are going to be returned from both tables regardless of whether there's a match. So the only thing we've changed here is we've introduced a full join instead of an inner, right? So we changed the join type. Our joining criteria is the same. Our left and right tables are the same. Our select list is the same. I did comment out the order by here just to bring up one point on this particular for this particular nuance with null values and how they appear in ascending or descending sorts. But it won't go into that yet. The important part is that we're executing a full join. All records return from both tables, regardless if there's a match in the other table. So we do see, right, from the inner join, we will see in a full join, you'll always see the records that would be returned in an inner join. So we see the records for account number 1, account number 3, and account number 5. And those are, these 3 records are the same that we saw on the previous slide for the inner join. What is introduced that's not as part of the inner join is those records for which there isn't a match in the other table. So we see account number 2, right, that this doesn't have a match in the other table. So the information will be returned from the left table where it appears. And then the right table, null values will be supplied for those fields that are not found for that account number that are not found in the right table. So we have null values here. The same occurs when a value is found in the right table that is not also in the left table. So we have the value from the right table here in the 4th record in the output, and we see that null values are supplied for the left table because account number 4 does not exist in that table. So this gives you the full possibilities, right? A full join is the complete set of records between the two tables, regardless of whether there's a match. The last point here, how would the order of output change with the order by? Note that the query kind of processed the account numbers in order. So 1, 2, 3, then it went over here to 4 and 5. So it was processed in that order. And the replication script will actually show this. Note that if we were to order by a.account number, this record for account number 4 would actually move to the top because null values in an ascending sort appear first. So that was one point. One thing I wanted to point out is that your order of your output might actually be different going between your inner join and your outer join for that reason. Or your inner join and your full join, full outer join. And then example 3, right, which is the left join is what I display here. Again, same query. It's just a left table, left join, and then also the order by is reintroduced. So if we think about this, right, the left or right join will include all records for one table. In this particular example, since it's the left join, the left table has all records returned, all values for all records, regardless if there's a match in the right table. Recall that our left table is essentially what appears on the before our join type and our from clause. And if we were to write this out on a single line, right, and we were looking directly at it, loan info, this temporary table here, would essentially be on the left hand side of the left join keywords, and then vehicle make is on the right side. So that's our right table. Vehicle make with table alias B is our right table. Loan info with table alias A is our left table. So on a left join, we're ultimately going to see all records returned from the left table. And so we see those 4 records supplied here, regardless if there's a match in the right table. So we will see that where there is a match found in the right table, the values will be supplied. So for account numbers 1, 3, and 5, the value will be supplied. And then when there's not a match, values of null will be supplied. So this is different from a full outer join, right? Because we did not ultimately return any records for when the value appeared in the right table, but not the left. And that's because this is a left join. It only considers values that appear in the left, regardless of whether they're matched in the right. And then note that we can rewrite this query as a right join by reordering some of the output or the tables within the from clause, and then also introducing a right join. Because essentially we'd be establishing the loan info table as our right table, and then with a right join, we would see those same all values displayed, regardless of whether they appear in what would then be our left table, because we've restructured the query. So that is to point out that left joins can always be rewritten as right joins, and vice versa by reshuffling some of the information. And that's ultimately why you'll probably see left joins more often. In practice, one isn't necessarily needed over the other, but left joins are usually the ones that you see most often. And then also the other one that you would see most often in practice is the inner join, because you ultimately, say that you had two. This is the inner join. Usually, if you have information in both tables that is relevant, you might ultimately only want information return that's displayed in both tables. So the inner join together with the left join are the most common. If values don't appear in one table or in both tables, you typically don't want all information displayed there, although that's not to say that these queries aren't useful. It is sometimes useful, I think, to use a full join, full outer join in order to understand what values appear in one table and are not matched in another, which we'll kind of go deeper into in another lecture where we talk about the syntax of this particular query, which is an example query from using tables in the AdventureWorks database. So if you want to see these examples replicated in SQL Server, see another video which I'm going to essentially walk through the way that this data was generated, etc.